Hello and welcome to the Disable the Label podcast. I'm your host, Kerry, and on our podcast we'll be chatting about all things disability, holidays, equipment, therapy, funding, you name it, and we'll talk about it. We want to empower and support parents of disabled children across the UK whilst they navigate their child's life. So, what are we waiting for? Let's get into it. This podcast is sponsored by Kesva Swimwear. They create swimwear for incontinence sufferers to empower them to swim with ease and confidence. Check them out on our app, Disable the Label, available on Google Play Store or Apple App Store. On this episode, we're joined by Lisa, our great friend who's been on the podcast before. She comes to talk about her journey. And disclaimer, this podcast does speak about death, but Lisa decided that she felt the need to share her story of what she's been through over the past few months so that she could help others in similar journeys. So, what are we waiting for? Let's get into it. Hello, on this episode we have Lisa. Lisa, welcome.
Hi. Oh, it's good to be back.
Some people might know Lisa from a few of our other podcasts that we have had. Lisa has been on twice, kind of chatting about two different things, really, kind of similar, kind of related. And I thought we'd get her back on to see where she is now, what she's been up to, how come we haven't really, spoken to her in a little while. So how about I pass that over to you, Lisa?
Yeah. Well, it feels like forever since I've done this. It's been a bit of a journey since I was last on here. So for those of you who don't know me, I am a yoga teacher and life coach, but also I've been very much a carer for my siblings and my dear mum. And the last 2 years, although being challenging for many of us because we had to navigate COVID, or 3 years, sadly, my mum and my brother's health had deteriorated considerably to the point when actually they passed away last year, 3 months apart from each other. So as you can imagine, any project, anything I was doing totally went on hold. It also went on pretty much hold before that because it was quite a difficult year, 18 months since I probably first came on these podcasts. However, I feel like I've got my spark back, and actually a deeper passion to do what I originally planned out to do all that time ago. I feel very, very humbled by what I've experienced, what we've experienced, recognizing the need for what I want to share with people and the community, which I feel I can have the biggest impact with, really, and those who are either a sibling like me or in a caring role in any capacity for a loved one or partner. And then combining that professional and personal experience and hopefully supporting lots and lots of people out there that may benefit from my experiences.
Yeah, totally. So how has it impacted your whole family with both your mum and your brother passing in such a kind of small space of time between each other?
Well, I mean, it's a humongous adjustment and loss. A massive space has been created both in time and in headspace. So for any of those that, possibly are caring for people with a degenerative condition, I mean, that you never really switch off from thinking about their needs and what the next thing is. Very much I feel let down by a lot of the NHS and professionals. So you kind of were always their eyes and ears, and when becoming non-verbal means you've got to advocate on their behalf. So wow, I mean, it shifted us as a family dramatically. I still look after my sister on a Wednesday. She's in a care home that my brother was originally at. So we're managing her grief and her learning disabilities and her fear of what the future holds for her because she's got the same condition as Craig had. And then that having the impact on my own family. I've got 3 children at home and a husband. And as you can imagine, I've been in crisis mode for a long time, and needing people to, you know, I guess step up and do things because I wasn't around. And then managing my emotions and being, you know, myself, and managing my emotions around people, and still trying to be present with them and not having a massive impact on them. Yeah, it's been huge. It's been absolutely huge. The most one is obviously my dear dad. You know, he's been my mum's main carer for many, many, many years. And to lose your son, your firstborn, and then he had very little time to grieve Craig because mum was so gravely ill also at the time. I thought we were going to have a double funeral, to be honest. You know, then his lifelong partner, they've been together since they were 17, is, you know, a whole life change for him. And people say the most ridiculous things to him. Well, now you can live your life and all this kind of stuff. But he's like, it's not like that. You know, you can't just move on. And
No.
it's gently. And I think I can talk on behalf of my dad too. Like, such a humbling, heartbreaking time that will take a long time to properly heal from. I don't think you properly heal. I think grief is an ongoing journey. But yeah, luckily me and my dad are quite consciously aware, and we have our beliefs, which has definitely helped the initial heaviness of the grief.
Yeah, 100%. How do you feel that, because of where you've come from being, you know, a yoga instructor and a life coach, how do you think that's helped yourself mentally going through that process? Do you think you would be in a different place if you didn't have those skills?
Well, my goodness, 100%. About 15 years ago, I did have a breakdown because my mum's mental health was terrible. My mum had MS, and was on some medication that was also didn't agree with her. And I think maybe a little bit more complexity towards her mental well-being on top of that, and the stress of having 2 children with a disability and having a professional job and all of that. And we all kind of broke at the same time. Like my mum, my dad, my mum. You know, my mum tries to take her own life, like by jumping out of a window. So you can imagine it was just dire times. And that was the start of a journey for me to get into yoga. I didn't plan to get into yoga, and I've talked about this on a podcast before. It just kind of, it happened from going on a quest, I guess, for, I didn't really give a shit. I shouldn't really swear on this, but like, about much. I didn't have much self-love. That if I went, what was the worst thing that's going to do? Let's go to Australia, let's see what happens. And I tentatively got on this journey of wellness. Now I look now, and I mean, that's like I said, 14, 15 years ago, and what I've learned in that time and what I'm now trained in. If I was going through what I've gone through in the last 2 years, I would have 100% totally and utterly crumbled. I know I would have, because I've had times where, even with all of the knowledge I have, it's been some times of really, really, really difficult, challenging phases that are pretty dark, you know, could be really, really dark.
Yeah.
But I had some tools in my bag.
So, yeah, exactly. And those tools have helped with your grief. So how has your grief kind of journey been? What have you been kind of working out what your triggers are and that kind of thing? Because I think, as you said earlier, grief is a journey. It's not like, doesn't just happen and doesn't happen anymore. It's a kind of a lifelong thing. And, you know, as I've learned over the past few years, you can have grief and you can have living grief. So there's so many various different, it comes in various different ways and forms. So how has that journey been? How have you been navigating that?
So yeah, like you said, there's the grief that there's been a long time of grieving, you know, grieving people that have got degenerative conditions and, you know, have got life limiting expectancies, that you grieve a lot for a long time. So, you know, I thought I was kind of prepped for grief. I thought that, you know, I've lost grandparents a long time ago, but I haven't lost my immediate family and people that I'm ridiculously close to before. So it's a totally new territory for me on that respect. But I genuinely thought, because I knew the inevitable was going to be happening, that I would be that I would kind of, I don't know, fast track it in some ways, I guess, that I wouldn't be as devastated. I can honestly say the initial bit, I was in shock, even though I knew it was coming. Craig was very sudden in the end, and sadly he didn't get the support he needed on the night that he lost his life. So I think it was his death wouldn't have necessarily been that day. I knew it was, would he have lived another year? Doubt it. But was that day the day that I think he was meant to die? I don't think so. He came home to see his mum on the Friday, out of his care, out of his nursing home. We were making plans for the next day, and then I wake up to these phone calls to find out that he's gone, which is, even those words now, I remember my dad saying he's gone, and I'm like, what do you mean he's gone? Like, he looked the best he'd looked in a long time, and sadly he didn't receive the care that night, didn't have a suction, didn't have a cough assist. So that one's the shock one. That one's like, and I went straight into, it was obviously meant to be, like everyone dies, I went really philosophical about why it happened. He came home, we were all there. He's obviously, that was, in some kind of way he knew. Then it sinks in. And then when it started to show that he didn't receive the care that night, then all of a sudden it's like on a whole different level, and it's like just devastating. And then also, that was just, to think of suffering and what could have been and what support he didn't get over the last few years, for a long time, probably for a long time really, that my mum got. And then my mum, on the other hand, was, we supported her at home at end of life, and that was torturous in a different way, because she took 11 days in that process. I think it was like, I then thought, oh, great, like, not great, that's a really wrong way of saying it. They've passed, they're out of suffering. I want to make good from this.
You can, yeah.
And I tried to make good from it way too quickly, I guess. And then again, the anger came back round again. I don't think grief really follows a pattern. I don't think I think it's just so sporadic, and it's so unpredictable. And then that's when, I surrendered, really, I guess. I was like, okay, I need to really be with this grief. So I've had some bereavement counselling. I feel like it was supported, it was relatively okay. Like, it was interesting to find out somebody who knows what grief looks like, and realising that, my foggy head, forgetting things, losing things, which I quite often do anyway, but on a grander scale is quite common, because you're obviously bouncing from the grief and then being present, and grief and then present, irritated with people, feeling extremely lonely, because no one could really understand the grief that you're going through, feeling overwhelmed quite frequently. And then there seems to be this next phase that I've stepped into, and it's not fake. I'm not sat here thinking, and I'm not stupid enough to think that, I'm through through it. I'm just saying I'm through the worst of it. And then there is this kind of total acceptance of, well, I know they're not coming back. That acceptance was always there, but could I have done anything differently? Could my dad do anything differently to what we did to support them in these last 2 years? With the knowledge that we had and the expertise that we had around us? No. On hindsight, what could we have done differently? Of course. But I'm okay with that now, that I cannot go back in time and make those changes or shout louder.
Yeah. So how are you feeling then, Becky, your sister? Because I know that's like another level on top of everything. Like, you've got this level of grief and grieving both, your brother and your mum. And then you've also got to think about Becky. I know that because I know, the type of person that you are. And, she's not just like, it's not something you can just forget about when you're grieving. I know that you're very aware of all of that. So how are you feeling, her and everything?
I found it really tough, because I think I underestimated how much I was struggling with my own grief. And then when I took her out and she would start crying, or she tells everybody our life story in a way, you know, wherever we go, regardless of what it is. So obviously this is huge life changing, sad, traumatic times for her. But I found that I didn't have any room for her grief. So I kept shutting her down, because I was thinking, if you start talking, and we're in a, like, you know, we were at Keydales, which is a garden centre, and we would, you know, we did the whole Christmas walk thing, and we're in the gift shop and she's about to cry. And I'm already feeling very emotional, because the last time I went there was with Craig, because everywhere I go with Becky, I went with Craig because it's wheelchair accessible. So I know the amount of times it was like walking those first, are going to, I know exactly even what table to set at a certain place, and you know, we can use access this at this time. So kind of walking back in those shoes with Becky were triggers, and then managing her emotions on top of that was just like, I felt really bad. I've had a lot of guilt about that, not being available to her. And then, like the other day, you know, I took her out last Wednesday, and she said, I don't want to die in my care home. I went, okay. She's desperate to move out of her care home, and I think it's a really good move. But as anybody who might have experienced having loved ones in a residential supported living, or in any capacity, making a move, we haven't got a social worker these days. You don't even kind of access a social worker necessarily, unless it's absolutely dire. It's not going to be a quick move. But it wasn't about that for her. Then she started crying, and she's like, because she doesn't want to die. She's worried about her own death because Mum and Craig have died, which is a totally rational thing for somebody to think. She's got the same condition as Craig, but then she's got this added learning disability, a degenerative condition. So cognitively, she's slowing down anyway. And my heart just broke for her, because I was just like, so I now I'm in that space where I am with my clients or my students, is like, I allowed her to be everything she needed to or experience in that time. Cry, let it out, let's talk, you know. And I need to look for some support for her, a counsellor of some sort whose expertise is learning disabilities. But it does make me nervous, because care homes are underfunded and they've not got enough carers. And I think that there's a lot of things that could have been nipped in the bud if Craig lived at home and they weren't. And you know, I even noticed the other day, a service user, was bubbly, and she had I went, oh, she's not very well. And they're like, no, she's just getting old. Well, she's just been in hospital for a week with pneumonia. And I'm like, if I'm just someone who just walked in and noticed she wasn't well, how come you guys, who aren't new carers, you've been here for like 19 years, haven't just seen what I've seen, thinking, oh, I don't think she's very well today. And then that means a hospital visit. So I feel extremely vigilant, my dad too, on not letting her slip through the net in any way, of any kind of support she needs through the next 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah. I think it's probably really hard for her, because she didn't necessarily see every single thing that her brother went through, but she obviously kind of knows it. And it's the learning disability mixed with like you know, she's seen that her brother was there and now her brother is not. And that's a really hard thing for her brain to navigate anyway, let alone with a learning disability on top of that. It's like, it's making it twice as hard. So yeah, how is she feeling at the moment with everything? Obviously, she said that she wants to kind of not be in that care home, which is I'm really glad that, I know you would always listen to her anyway, but I'm really glad that she felt okay to be able to say that to you guys, because like, that's completely okay, you know, and it's nice that she's able to do that.
Well, I think her nature, you know, remembering, take away the disability and all of that, Becky's nature is like, every 4 years, no matter where she is, she wants to experience something new. And I love her for that. And I love her force of nature with that. I think the problem is these days is that it's always been difficult, you know, and also the next move would probably be one of the last moves. Do you know what I mean? I think that, you know, you don't move willy-nilly. And what is available for her to move to, you know, is it the devil, you know, or is it actually, no, this isn't, you know, there's something better and more age appropriate for her now. Because the reason she moved to where she is because Craig was there. And then during Craig's 3 months in hospital, he had to go into a nursing home. And he went into a nursing home in the middle of the pandemic. So he'd had us there every single day for 3 months. And then we couldn't access him because it was COVID. So we then had 3 weeks where we couldn't see him. And then we had a screen to see him. And he could no longer communicate at that point because he was so weak. And we had never seen the nursing home. It all been done through QA Hospital. So Becky was then left in the care home that he was in. So when he got moved, we said, well, why don't you move into Craig's room? Because his room is nicer, blah, blah, blah. And now, bless her, she's in his room when he's passed away. So then has all those memories of him there. So I am fully supportive of that. It's just getting the ball in motion is really,
in the right place as well.
Yeah. And also us having the mental space to do that now, Becky hasn't got the awareness that we're all grieving, that we're all struggling, that we've all got other things going on externally. Like I've got a family and a business as well as that was obviously not been the forefront of everything, but isn't important. She's just thinking about her. But at the same time, I'm like, if you are wheelchair bound and they've got no money to take people out and about at the moment, and you're going, I mean, she's lucky, but the only service she has besides me and my dad taking her out is going to the daycare centre once a week, which she holds on for dear life. I would want to leave. I would want to get out. I don't want to be, and she hasn't got the ability to make those changes herself. So yeah, been tough.
So on that note, let's get on to what you're wanting to do then, and what you're kind of is something obviously that you've talked about before on a previous podcast.
So I kind of went totally and utterly I don't want to I like shut off all my original ideas while I was through I just didn't have any energy for any of it whatsoever. And then all of a sudden it feels like, oh my goodness, like I said, more than ever, the fire in my belly is back. So there's two things really. I mean, I feel that I can be, like I said, the most beneficial to this community, the community of those in a caring role, and also supporting those with disability or limiting conditions in some way. So a project of mine that I'm really, 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 really passionate at the moment to get off the ground, and me and Kerry were talking about this before we actually got on the podcast, was going back to offering wellness sessions within a care home or a daycare setting. And I had this idea when I couldn't access Craig, and it was all the time we couldn't get in. It took me long. I don't even think I saw his room for 4 months because I wasn't allowed in I didn't have a clue about anything inside this nursing home. And I thought, well, how can he see me? Because he can't communicate, can't pick up the phone. I could do like a wellness class, and it can be like what I was doing for my normal everyday classes, like a session online. So I plan to have access, basically create these packages, a sensory wellness session. So there would be the sense perception, like using smells. So I've got a bespoke room spray, which I've already got up and running. Music, which would be the same music every time. So people that don't like change know that this is your wellness class. Positive affirmations that those that can pick one out of a bag can take out. And then me either offering like a very short, because obviously it can't be too long because I've got to try and keep everyone's attention. Either chair yoga, maybe off the, on the mat yoga, breathing exercises, visualizations. And then people go, well, how can you do that when there is such a spectrum of needs? And I was like, how it feels. I don't know if anyone's ever been to like a Buddhist temple or, a place of worship or something like that. There's an energy there. And I'm thinking like an intention for me is a huge thing when we have intentions for things, that if once a week, I go on we put the class on, people do the room spray, the music comes on. Even I'm thinking about having some kind of material for people to hold or have as a relaxation time. Weighted blankets for perhaps those who have autism, if they're already available in the care homes, really using all different kind of senses to experience it. That even if you can't move, even if my sister can't move her legs, I did it with her the other day. Well, visualize your legs like lifting up, wiggling your toes. Or even if they've not got the capacity to do that, the energetics of the room, the intention of the room will be, you've done your wellness your practice today. And it only needs to be once a week if needs be, because I know also making it actually that people are going to be able to do it, because in care homes, they've got lots of agency in. So there's like lots of new people that don't even know the service users. Mine's about, anything else, like in terms of added extra bits. So making it like, idiot proof really to put on. So there's no excuse. And that's, I'm really passionate about that. I'm really passionate about that. And there's something else that someone said to me yesterday was, a lot of people have their own iPad these days, or like some kind of device, and you could do like a live one once a month. And, it's, I don't know how much it would cost, but you come online a bit like we do with any kind of Zoom fitness online. So then I can be interactive with those people on there. And it's again in their timetable that on a Thursday at 11 o'clock, you're going to do your wellness class with Lisa. So yeah, I'm super excited, as you can tell, with, I feel really, really clear with it. But I also got to get the ball in motion. So I'm currently going to different care homes, day centres, day services, basically doing my homework to know what works and what doesn't, get some feedback back from those who are going to, take part in the sessions. So that's one part. That's one part. And the other part is supporting those like myself, who find themselves caring, and through coaching, yoga and wellness again, either in a yoga package or sessions or yoga sessions that we meet up, and it's a weekly thing that we do online or in person, with the idea of putting on a retreat. Probably will be the beginning of next year, if I think about it, where people, I can have a group of people that don't often give themselves the time to take care of themselves because they can't. I know it's always been one of my dad's kind of like, it grates on him when people used to say, well, you've got to look after you. And he'd be like, well, that's all right, you saying that, but when can I look after me? And it also not being that you come to the retreat to just talk about your experience, because sometimes it'd be like, it's actually being away from that, being away from the everyday caring and needing to be there for someone, but being taught some tools, some yoga, some coaching, some breathing exercise, tangible things that people could go home with afterwards and implement in their lives.
Yeah, definitely. It's because then they will use those at the time that suits them. They could be in a total, really stressful, extremely hard moment, and they could go, I just need to take 5 minutes and use like a breathing exercise that you've shown them, or listen to a meditation that you've already provided them and they've gone away with. And I think that is 100% needed, because I know they don't have the time to give back to themselves, but they also need to have that. And if they have gone on a retreat and been given those tools, they're more likely to be able to use them. Just not having the tools, you're not going to use them, are you? So I think it's amazing that I think all of your experience and knowledge is going to help those people, because sometimes also just being heard and understood from somebody that's been there is a massive thing. Because I know I've spoken to a lot of parents and siblings that kind of, they just feel like, oh well, I went to this thing but I don't really know what I'm going through. In actual fact, you totally do, and that's a massive thing to them. It's really exciting. So what else are you going to be doing? Anything on Instagram or anything like that?
Yeah, you just reminded me. So and going back to the retreat thing, it's also about like being nurtured, someone giving you the food being provided for you. You don't have to think about it. And if you wanted a massage, you could have a massage. You go for a walk down the beach. It's like all the things that you cannot do when you are in the thick of it all. I also want to say that this is also, I know for those who are in, crisis point, is quite hard to access. And that's something that I did notice in the last, with all the knowledge I have. When I was in that crisis, I I couldn't hear things. I couldn't do those practices. I also couldn't bear social media. I couldn't bear the positive affirmation. I love a positive affirmation. Hate, like, it used to, again, like I wanted to scream, because I'm like, you know, I was so like, felt unjust. The world had been so unjust that, like, that positive affirmation that, like, a year ago I was like, oh my God, it's amazing, was just like, I couldn't receive it. So I'm also aware of that too, you know, that for some people it's going, you know, you got to tread carefully and be, and I basically, I just want to be like this, right? Like, let me nurture you for the weekend. You don't have to think much. You don't even have to speak if you don't want to. We're here, supportive, and whatever you need from that retreat is what you can access. So that comes on to, like you said, the social media thing. I'm going to be a little bit more active on there. I'm going to talk sometimes some quite heavy things about what we've experienced, because I think it would be beneficial. Of course, we all have a slightly different experience, but there's going to be similarities. But I'm going to offer on a Monday at 10 o'clock, mostly. I'm hoping 10 o'clock, as long as, like, no problems with my own children, is a 10-minute, like, again, guided meditation, breathing exercise, a little, you know, shoulder stretch, a little bit of chair yoga, you know, just little snippets, again, of tangible things that you can try and implement in your life, which is probably more doable than an hour-long class, or, you know, that's my plan.
Yeah, get your week started in, like, a good positive way with you. That's kind of will be really nice for some people to access. So yeah, that's kind of everything, isn't it? It's like some amazing, exciting things to come. I honestly think what you're wanting to do is 100% needed. Obviously, like, we've both seen it. We've both been there and seen that they're both needed. And if you're somebody that wants to access or learn more about what Lisa is doing, where can people find you, Lisa?
Yeah, so obviously we talked about Instagram. I'm the most comfortable on that, in terms of, like, I'm a bit more the savviest on that, I guess. So that's the wellbeing_Lisa. I have 2 websites. I've got the yogabeing.co.uk, which is the yoga one, and then I've got lisamaniatis.com. That will probably be the one which I will start to promote more of this. It's been totally dormant. I haven't done anything on it since it was first launched, so it's I need to start to refresh that. But you can also just contact me. You know, all my contact details are on there. You know, coaching is something, like I said, we can do in person or we can do virtually. You know, it works great both ways. And we can combine and blend. If you want to do yoga, if you can be in person, some hands-on healing as well, which I often offer my clients at the moment. But really, it's more about reaching out, having a conversation with me, and I'll see how I can be of support and what it is that you're looking for. And all those details are on my website.
Yeah, and if you're struggling to find Lisa, you can find her on our app. All of her details, her telephone number, email, and both websites are on the app directory. You can find her under sports, yoga, or support. So if you're struggling to find her online, if you haven't typed it in correctly, etc., don't worry, you can find it all there, but we will also put it in the show notes. So thank you, Lisa, for joining us and telling us about everything, because I think it's really going to help a lot of people out there. I think it's amazing what you're going to be doing.
Yeah, thank you for having me back. I feel super excited. It feels nice to have the vision back, and like I said, with even more clarity and a different why. You know, I've been so humbled that it's like, right, it's needed. It's coming from a real place of wanting to be of service to those I can help the most.
Thanks for tuning in to the Disable the Label podcast. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a comment to let us know what you thought of this episode. More episodes will be coming soon, so make sure you tune in. don't forget you can download our app for free via the App Store. That's Google Play or Apple App Store. Just search Disable the Label and you'll find us.